Welcome to this webinar on the 3Q Practitioner Training course. Now, most of you will be familiar with this diagram. We've got the left brain and the right brain. In the left brain, we have the functions like logic, analysis, mathematics, language. And the right brain governs the emotional intelligence functions of imagination, feelings, daydreaming, and so on. So IQ and EQ are represented in these two hemispheres. But what people don't really appreciate is the fact that when these two hemispheres are integrated, then you get a further dimension of intelligence in addition to IQ and EQ, which we call SQ, spiritual intelligence. And the qualities of spiritual intelligence are things like witnessing, egoless perception, egoless motives, intuition, integrity, and all these other qualities of the soul, such as peace and joy. And as you can see here at the bottom, whole brain capabilities of spiritual intelligence exceed the sum of IQ and EQ part brain capabilities. Now, this diagram you may be familiar with already. You've probably seen it on the website. This diagram summarizes what 3Q is all about. And as you can see here, we have the three dimensions of intelligence, IQ and EQ, left and right hemisphere, SQ, the whole brain. And that's why we call it 3Q, of course, because it combines all these three dimensions of intelligence. Now, this approach to raising awareness is based on a solid scientific basis. And we use evidence from four different fields of scientific research: transpersonal psychology, psychoanalysis, cognitive psychology, and neuroscience. So this is a science-based program. Now, the aims of the course, this practitioner course, can be summarized under four headings: to train and certify practitioners, to introduce fast-track methodology for high-performance skills, and then we have also some social and cultural aims. We want to accelerate the next stage of collective consciousness and build human capacity to meet current challenges. So our purposes in the course are, first of all, to train you to be a practitioner and to deliver 3Q courses, but also to have a beneficial effect on social and cultural development. Now, the course is split up into these three semesters. Semester 1 has 3 recorded sessions per week for 1 month and 1 live session per week. Semester 2 is the same, 3 recorded sessions per week for 1 month and 1 live session per week. Semester 3 is also for 1 month, but just 1 live session in semester 3. And then certification as a practitioner occurs at the end of the course. Now, let me tell you what certification amounts to. There's 3 different components of certification: a written knowledge test, an audition, and a question and answer session. The written knowledge test is 20 questions based on the course material that you've covered that you can write in your own time. There's an audition where you give a brief presentation online using some of the material that you've learned during the course. And then there's also a question and answer session. Basically, that's just about answering questions, the sort of questions that you'll be asked by your clients. So that certification happens at the end of the course after the 3 months of course material. Now, there's 3 levels in practitioner training. This first course that we're discussing now is the level 1. There's also the senior level and the master level. those more advanced levels will equip you to present more advanced courses. As you can see on the screen here, the entry level, the level that we're discussing now, will equip you to deliver these 4 courses: 3Q Life Skills, 3Q Workplace, which is for corporates, 3Q Couple, which is a couples course for the public, and 10-second meditation, which again is a course for the public. The idea behind 10-second meditation is to make it clear to people that spiritual intelligence represents meditation, but we have a method that we can teach people which gives them very rapid access to the meditation space. It's called the 3Q portal. We'll cover that later in today's session. Now, at the senior level, you get more. You can deliver more advanced courses: 3Q Management, 3Q Leadership, and intensive courses for the public: 3Q Couple and 10-second meditation for the public. The Master certification is a more advanced certification which allows you to deliver 3Q organizational development. Now, the basic core material we teach in our courses can be summarized under 10 headings of the life and work skills: self-awareness, purpose, problem solving, critical thinking, creative thinking, decision-making, coping with emotions, coping with stress, interpersonal skills, and effective communication. So we teach all these skills using 3Q methodology, that is, using your spiritual intelligence combined with your IQ and EQ. These are some of the courses we have in the corporate space: workplace, management, and leadership. Now, the benefits of corporate training for the corporates can be summarized under these 4 headings: boost IQ and EQ, productivity growth, job satisfaction, and social responsibility. The boost IQ and EQ, see, when you use your spiritual intelligence, your IQ is more focused and your EQ is developed, increased, which leads to a greater degree of job satisfaction, and which again results in productivity growth, and also provides a social level of involvement, which allows a corporation to fulfill its obligations to society by using 3Q capabilities. So these are some of the courses that I've already mentioned. So let's just quickly go through the methodology that we teach people and that you'll be trained in order to teach others how to use their spiritual intelligence. This is just a brief run through, just so you get a feel for the sort of methodology that we use. So this is the symbol for spiritual intelligence, and it includes all 3 dimensions: IQ, EQ, and SQ. And this symbol opens out into the twin poles of attention. So at the subject pole, we have feeling awareness itself, that's just consciousness itself. And at the object pole, we have states of body and mind. So let's just have a look at these each pole of attention in a bit more detail. So at the object pole of attention is everything that you're aware of: perceptions, thoughts, emotions, memories, beliefs, self-image. Every possible thing you're aware of is at the object pole. Now, objects of attention are products of IQ and EQ, because every perception, thought, emotion, and so on is a product of either your intellectual intelligence or your emotional intelligence, or a combination of the two. And of course, objects of attention are also states of body and mind. Now, when you identify with objects of attention, that's what's called being the ego. So when you identify with your thoughts, when you identify with your emotions or with your body, that's called being the ego. What are the results of being the ego? Well, I think we're all familiar. Seeking satisfaction, using this moment as a means to the next, feeling discontented, and reacting to things rather than responding. Reacting means that you're coming from the past rather than the present. Responding means you're coming from the present. So that's the object pole of attention. Let's have a look at the subject pole of attention and see how that's different from the object pole. So the subject pole of attention is feeling awareness itself, or consciousness itself. And the qualities of consciousness itself are wisdom, compassion, integrity, joy, love, creativity, and peace. All these qualities arise from consciousness itself. That when you're actually identified with consciousness itself, then these qualities spontaneously arise in your awareness. And we call this the soul state. I know soul is usually a religious term, but we're not using it in a religious sense. We're just using the term soul to describe the identification with awareness itself, with all those soul qualities. Now, what are the results of being the soul? Well, they're very different than the results of being the ego. Not seeking, already happy, not using this moment as a means to the next, responding, not reacting. And these are all the qualities of spiritual intelligence. So this diagram, therefore, represents the basic operating system of human awareness, the two poles of attention. And you're either identified with the object pole or the subject pole. These are the basic options we have as individual human beings. So that's why this represents the basic operating system of our own awareness. Now, the question is, how do you get from one to the other? How do you get from ego to soul? Normally, we're in the ego state. Normally, we're identified with states of body and mind, emotions, thoughts, perceptions, memories, and so on. So how do you shift from being the ego to being the soul? Because that's the key to spiritual intelligence. Well, clearly we have to go through this mechanism of attention, because that's what links ego with soul. So let's have a look at how we actually navigate through this mechanism of attention. There are basically 3 steps which get you from the object pole to the subject pole of attention. This is the most rapid and effective pathway through the mechanism of attention. Step 1, notice. Step 2, feel. Step 3, be. Now, in a moment, we're going to have a look at these 3 steps in a bit more detail so you understand exactly what we mean by these 3 steps. By completing these 3 steps, we're able to go from ego to soul and therefore access our spiritual intelligence. So let's have a look at the first step. Notice. So notice what? Well, simply notice the subject of attention. How do you do that? Just notice that attention has 2 poles. That's a very simple operation, just uses your IQ. It takes a split second. You just remind yourself that, oh, there's things I'm aware of, and then there's me as awareness itself at the subject pole. Step 2, feel. So feel what? Well, feel the qualities of feeling awareness itself. Now, how do you do that? Well, we use an exercise for that. Let me just take you into that exercise now so that you have just a taste of what we're talking about here. This exercise takes a couple of minutes, so I'd encourage you just to let your eyes close for a moment and just follow the instructions that I'm about to say. So just bring your attention now to your breathing. Just take a deep in breath And then just notice that at the end of the in-breath, there's this pause when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. And then at the end of the out-breath, there's another pause when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. So you don't have to breathe in any special way here. You can breathe with your mouth, you can breathe through your nose, that's fine either way. But the thing to notice is that there's a point when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. At the end of the in-breath and at the end of the out-breath. Now just notice how it feels in those still points. Notice what happens to your thinking mind in those still points. You'll probably notice that your mind stops thinking just for a moment. When you're neither breathing in or breathing out, the mind pauses for a split second. And then what do you feel? What do you feel in that space when the mind pauses? Most people, when they first do this, realize that they feel peaceful in that space, in that short space when they're neither breathing in or breathing out. They're actually feeling peaceful. And why is this so? Well, that's because momentarily, all that activity at the object pole of attention, all that thinking stops. And therefore, you're able to feel the qualities at the subject pole of attention, which are the qualities of awareness itself. And peace is one of those first qualities. There are many other qualities that emerge at the subject pole, but peace is usually the first one. The other qualities are all the qualities of spiritual intelligence. Compassion, for example, arises at the subject pole. Integrity arises at the subject pole. At the subject pole, there's no inclination to be anything less than just and true and to act with integrity. This integrity arises spontaneously when you're simply being awareness itself. So when you feel that peacefulness there in those still points, you'll find your body relaxes, and then it's time to move on to step 3, which is be. Be what? Be that peaceful feeling. So the peaceful feeling you had in step 2, in step 3, you simply be that feeling. That means simply being awareness itself. So now you're being that stillness, and you're able to maintain yourself at the subject pole as awareness itself simply by noticing that you are the one who is aware. Just take a look around the room now. Let your eyes open, have a look. Just notice that you are at this moment not being your mind, you're not being any of your thoughts, you're not being your emotions, you're simply being awareness. Everything that you're aware of is an object of your attention, but you are being awareness itself. Now that's what's called being at the subject pole, or if you like, being the soul, being awareness itself. And all the qualities of awareness itself will quite spontaneously arise for as long as you maintain yourself simply as awareness itself. Now you can maintain yourself as awareness itself without having to think about it. Once you've practiced this method for a while, you'll notice that you can simply be present as awareness itself, even while you put your attention on other matters. So this method is a method of getting you into the position of being the soul, and then having got there, you're able to maintain yourself there without having to do these 3 steps again and again and again. So these 3 steps, if you like, put you into orbit, and you can maintain yourself in the soul position for long periods of time. Now, when you lose that position of being awareness itself, you can regain it by repeating the 3 steps. So that's what's called the 3Q portal, these 3 steps: notice, feel, and be. And in the practitioner course, you'll get the opportunity to improve your skills at using this portal, so that you're then able to teach other people how to do it. Now, this method of experiencing spiritual intelligence is based on the results of scientific research. It's been discovered that when you're in the position of simply being awareness itself, that corresponds to a state of the brain called whole brain activation. And what that means is that the whole brain is being activated by the same frequency at that point. And the frequencies, there are certain frequencies which correspond to whole brain activation. 40 hertz is one of them, and there are several others. And this whole brain frequency causes both hemispheres to synchronize. And that's why we call it whole brain training, because we're training the whole brain. We're not just training parts of the brain, like IQ and EQ, which are parts of the brain. And so this whole brain activation gives you access to the qualities and capabilities of spiritual intelligence. So the point to get here is that we have the neuroscientific evidence to show we're talking about something real here. It's not just an idea. Neuroscience has confirmed that when you are conscious as awareness itself, when you are simply being present as awareness, that there's a neurological signature which is characteristic of that state of awareness. We call it the 3Q brain because it's the when you use your spiritual intelligence, you actually develop the capability of being at the subject pole better. It's more possible for you to be at the subject pole more of the time. So the 3Q brain represents a brain which has improved its capacity. Someone with a 3Q brain has a larger capacity to maintain awareness at the subject pole, to simply be the soul in association with any activity. Now, the principles that we use to develop this ability are called neural plasticity. You've probably heard of the term. It's frequently mentioned in the press and in psychology journals, how the mind, the brain, is capable of developing abilities subject to how you use it. Now, for example, a taxi driver. They've done studies on the brains of taxi drivers and discovered that the brains of taxi drivers have a distinct feature not shared by others who don't spend their days finding directions. There's a particular part of the brain that specializes in finding directions, and in taxi drivers, that part of the brain is enlarged compared to other people who don't spend their day finding directions. And of course, what that shows is the effects of neuroplasticity, that the brain evolves or develops according to how you use it. A similar example can be found with violin players. If you have a look at the violin player here on the screen, you can see how the hand on the strings does a lot more work than the hand holding the bow. The hand on the strings has a lot of intricate detailed movements to complete, very complex, very rapid. Whereas the hand on the bow, holding the bow, is simply holding something without really much articulation at all. And they've discovered, as expected, that the part of the brain that governs the hand on the strings is much more developed than the part of the brain that governs the other hand in violin players. So again, indicating how the brain develops according to how you use it. And of course, the same principles apply to acquiring your 3Q abilities. In order to be good at using 3Q, all three dimensions together, you need to develop your brain. And that's exactly what we do on the course. On the practitioner course, you get plenty of opportunity to practice the 3Q method and to develop your ability to remain at the subject pole in association with any experience or any activity. And that actually evolves your brain, just as the taxi driver evolved his brain and the violin player evolved his brain. You can evolve a brain that is adept at using spiritual intelligence. Now, this is a surprising fact that if you have a look at the two maps on the screen now, the map on the left is in fact wrong. If you compare it to the map on the right, just look at the size of Africa in the two maps. As you'll see on the map on the right, Africa is much bigger than the map on the left. Now, the astonishing thing is that the map on the left has been used for the last 400 years. And it's still in use, believe it or not. People still use the map on the left, even though it's wrong, even though we now know it's wrong. In fact, the map on the right is much more accurate, produced in 1974. The map on the left was produced in 1559. But we've been using the map on the left for 400 years. And it's very wrong, as you can see, that the true dimensions or the relative dimensions of different continents are very different than on the map that's been used for 400 years and a map that's still used. Now, you might ask, well, if we can be so wrong about the map of the Earth, what about the map of human awareness? Well, not surprisingly, we've also been wrong about the map of human awareness. Now, as we've just looked at, the basic operating system of human awareness is these twin poles: what you're aware of at the object pole, and awareness itself at the subject pole. But for the last 400 years, scientists have assumed that awareness is entirely reducible to the object pole. And that, of course, is the materialist point of view, the materialist worldview. The materialist worldview is that consciousness is just a product of the brain, and consciousness can be reduced to neurons firing in the brain. In other words, scientists up until now have simply assumed that awareness is a function that it can be reduced to a material event. The firing of brain neurons. So this is the materialist worldview, where everything is reduced to a material object. Now, the subject pole of attention is not a material object. It is awareness itself, which is non-material, and it's not reducible to anything material. So the subject pole, if you like, was a lost continent to the scientific world until recently, until the advent of transpersonal psychology and integral science, upon which the SQ paradigm is based. So what we're presenting, therefore, is a new understanding of how awareness relates to the brain. We're not agreeing with the scientific view, which up to now has taken the view that consciousness is a product of the brain and merely reducible to the material processes in the brain. We're saying no, that's not in fact true, that consciousness is in fact not reducible to material events. And now we have evidence for this, of course, which we'll cover in the course, so that you can see this is not simply an arbitrary claim that we're making. This is based on solid scientific evidence that in fact the materialist worldview is incorrect. So modern science, integral science, post-materialist science has a more enlarged understanding of the nature of consciousness. Now, other courses which are designed to develop human capabilities use only IQ and EQ, whereas our courses, 3Q courses, use all three dimensions, IQ, EQ, and SQ. In that way, 3Q courses train the whole brain. So compared to other courses that train only parts of the brain, the 3Q courses are more thorough and effective and therefore result in lasting benefits. Now, if you're interested in this course, I encourage you to register for the course, and I'm going to put this link in the chat box for you, so that if you are ready to do this course, if you feel this course is for you, then the thing to do would be to register, and you can use that link there. You can just copy and paste that link, or just click on that link and it will take you to the registration page. Now, if you want more information about the course before you make a decision, let me just put this other link here, and you can, if you go to this link, you'll be able to get more details about the course and about the methodology. There's also a number of articles that you'll find linked to this page, which will give you more details. Now, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead. You could either type a question in the chat box, or you could speak. I can unmute your microphone and you can speak if you have a question you'd like to ask. So feel free to ask any questions or make any comments at this point if you'd like to. So I hope this short webinar has been informative, and if you feel that this course is something that you would like to do, then you're most welcome to apply for the course. And if you do this 3-month course, you'll be equipped with course material which will allow you to train others in this methodology. And the course material is designed for students and also for the corporate area and for the public. So there's different courses we have depending on the audience. So thank you very much for attending the webinar, and I hope that this has been informative. And if you wish to do the course, I'll be delighted to answer any questions you might have about it and to welcome you to the course. So thank you for attending, and bye-bye for now.